Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Campus Cyber Ops, Modernize, Train, Generate Revenue. I'm Nikki House, a member of the professional learning team here at EDUCAUSE, and I'll be your host for today's event. EDUCAUSE is so pleased to welcome today's panelists. They'll introduce themselves in just a moment. But first, I'd like to give you a guide to our sessions meeting environment today. So if you are joining in and you want to share resources or ask questions, this is an interactive session. Please feel free to use the chat by clicking on that chat icon at the bottom of the presentation window. Make sure that you've selected everyone from that drop-down menu so everyone on the call today can engage with your comments. We will hold Q&A at the end of the presentation, but I highly encourage you to thread your questions throughout the webinar. And if you have any technical issues, please let me know by directing a private message to hosts and panelists in that same chat drop-down menu. The session recordings and slides will be archived and available later today on the EDUCAUSE website. Finally, if you're chatting about today's webinar on social media, please use the tag hashtag EDUCAUSE webinar. Thank you again for joining us today. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Nikki. My name is Bruce Johnson. I am the VP of Solutions here at TekStream, and I've been working with our partners in higher ed to put this program together for the past 3.5, 4 years in a production setting. And I'll throw it to Michael Faisley, who leads our workforce development team. Michael.
Thanks, Bruce. My name is Michael Faisley. I am Senior Manager of Security Operational Readiness here at TekStream. I've been at the organization almost 2.5 years. And like Bruce said, I head up our workforce development program. So I oversee all of the student SOCs that participate.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig Woolley. I'm the Chief Information Officer here at LSU. We are all excited to present to you about a project we've been working on for the last few years, like Bruce mentioned. And we're definitely interested to hear your feedback and your questions. We do feel we are, as you'll see, very passionate about this project. And we are happy to share with you some of the things that we've done. So first, what we wanted to do is just get an idea from those of you who are attending. This presentation is around student-led SOCs, or as we call them, student-powered SOCs. And we're just curious if where you are in your journey and whether there is a desire on your end, and if there's any obstacles, what are those obstacles? So we just figured we would do this poll to start with so we get an idea of where you are at. That helps us make sure we're tailoring our content for what your needs are. So it could be funding, and I wouldn't be surprised at that because 24/7 SOC services can be pricey. We'll talk about things we've done to try to help lower that cost. It could be that you don't have the interest. Could be technical issues, which again, I think we'll be able to talk through how we've gotten by some of that. And it could be a collaboration issue with academics and IT. So we will give you a minute to fill out that poll, and then we will continue. And again, if you don't know, you can just pick whatever you think is the closest to your situation. And again, we will use this information to guide our presentation going forward. And Bruce, I don't know if we want to go on to the next slide while they're voting, or whether we want to give it still another minute.
Well, we only have a couple more seconds, so I'll go ahead and end that poll and share the results with you.
Thank you, Nikki.
So not surprising,
Not at all.
Funding was the biggest, and then a few of technical challenge. So that's what we expected, I think, and that was also one of my issues. So as Bruce, if you go on, what I want to go over with you guys is here at LSU, as we were looking at this SOC, we'll just fill up the slide real quick, let you know what our goals were here. And typically, if you're going to start a SOC, your number one rationale for that should be that you want to increase your cybersecurity posture. So we wanted to do that here at LSU. What you'll hear me say a couple of times is the beauty, I think, of where we landed with our model is we thought bigger than just LSU from the get-go. And so we were looking to increase cybersecurity posture of all higher ed in the state of Louisiana, not just LSU. But the other really important part about our SOC is to give students that real world experience that helps in our missions. It also helps us get buy-in from the board and from legislators and from other people that might not be cybersecurity experts or realize the advantage of having this type of operation, but they do understand the big buzzword nowadays of workforce development. And so we made our project to be just as much about workforce development as it was about cybersecurity. And so for all of you guys that said one of your, I think, issues with going with the student-led SOC has been cost, we'll show you what we've done in our model to help keep the cost down, because that was one of my main goals. We did work with our local research education network called Lonnie to help deploy this model across the state. And I think the most important piece on this slide is what we chose to do is to not do this by ourselves. And we created a unique public-private partnership with TekStream to allow us to really get the best of all worlds with our model. And in our next page, I'll show you what that looks like here for the state. First and foremost, we hired TekStream to do managed detection and response services for us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that typically can be quite pricey, like some of you have mentioned. But it is very difficult in a higher ed setting, if you want to do a student-led SOC, to deal with nights and weekends and especially holidays and all of that. So in our public-private partnership model, TekStream is there 24/7. However, where this gets unique is our students, and if you look at the Lonnie LSU SOC picture in the bottom right, our students are working in a local SOC here, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And during that time, our students are working hand in hand with TekStream in fighting incidents, looking for things that are issues and helping to solve them. And because our students are doing that, that TekStream's contract with us has been modified to where all the work our students do come off our bill. And that is what has allowed us to come up with a model that gives us a 24/7 protection. So I don't have to worry about nights, weekends, and holidays, still gives our students fantastic work experience and helps lower cost all at the same time. So these students are actually employed by LSU, but us paying our students student salaries is a lot cheaper than paying someone like TekStream. The other thing we did with this model, which might be of interest to all of you, is we built this from the ground up to be able to be expanded and to be applied at other universities very seamlessly. So it's what I call a franchise model. We'll talk a lot about the training and all the other things we've got already put in place with this, but it was designed to where other schools could adopt this and get up and running very quickly. We've done this with 2 schools in the state. One is at La Tech and one is at LSU Shreveport. And in those schools, they have a SOC too, and their students work in the SOC are trained the same way the students at the LSU SOC are trained. They work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday also. But overarching over all three of our SOCs is TekStream watching and making sure, one, that the students are meeting some of the deadlines that we've got and some of the SLAs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But those students are all trained and onboarded the same way. With TekStream, again, overseeing all of it. So it's been a really, really great model for us and has allowed us to now protect. That slide says 29 entities, but this is changing and we're able to do things so quickly. We're already up to 32 entities in our SOC being protected, plus the other two, La Tech and LSU Shreveport. So we are protecting 34 entities in the state of Louisiana with this model. And Bruce, I'll let you go on. So I mentioned this is a unique public-private partnership that we have created with TekStream. It does align both us and TekStream of one mission focus, which is one, the cybersecurity protection, but also the outcomes for students and helping students get trained, get on the job, real world experience, while at the same time having them help protect us. And what I see other schools struggle with is that 24/7 piece. And so by doing this as this partnership, it covers that gap. It is very collaborative. It is truly a partnership between this endeavor and TekStream. Like I said, the workforce development has been huge in this and has what's gotten us, I think, lots of support all the way up through the state. And it has allowed us to do this stuff very quickly because usually private industry can move much quicker than higher ed. And those of you in higher ed, probably, I've been in higher ed 37 years. I know we can be a little bit more slower to move. So as an example, everything you're going to see today, the very beginnings of this started in January of 2023. And so we are not even 3 years, 3.5 years in, and what you'll see all was accomplished in a short 3 to 3.5 years. And the other important thing I'll mention from this slide is that we have this unique contract as part of this program with TekStream that allows us to reduce our costs because our students are helping TekStream. However, our contract and the legal language is no different than a typical TekStream contract. And by that, they still own all the SLAs. So there's SLAs in place that they are committing to meeting because both LSU, all the universities in this agreement, and TekStream believe that we can train students to be as effective as some full-time security analysts out there because of how robust this program is. And so because we both believe in that, they have no issue with still owning the SLAs, including the work our students do. And I think that's a huge, acknowledgement for this shared risk we're all taking and really the shared desire from both areas to make this successful. And I'll let you go to the next slide, Bruce. So we also have designed this and in 3 stages for schools, and they don't have to go through all 3 stages. They could actually just do 1 stage. And what this is designed around is if you're a school and you're interested in maybe joining into this program, you could just do mission 1, which is TekStream could provide you protection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There would be a reduced cost to you even if you do that model, even if you don't have your own students doing the work. We do have a SOC here at LSU, actually a second SOC that we opened up that is designed to help schools that don't want their students involved or don't want their students involved yet, that our students can help reduce that cost for that school. Then if the school decides we want our students to get that great experience, they can open up their own SOC on their campus. You don't have to recreate the wheel. We have a lot of stuff already prepared for you. We have the onboarding process very quick and very easy for you. And then you can be training your students. But the beauty of this is it would be your SOC, your name on the SOC. Your school gets the credit. Your school gets to market it, which our school has been marketing this quite heavily. Some of the other schools involved in this program are marketing it quite heavily. You get that massive win publicly, just behind the scenes. You don't have to recreate the wheel. It's all already helped for you by what we've already done. No need to start over. And then if that is going well for you, a new wrinkle we're just adding is you can then turn this into a revenue generator for your school if you choose, by having TekStream subcontract to you, where you can give even more students this capability, and you can be providing this service to private businesses, maybe local municipalities, other K-12 or other schools in your area, that you can actually create now a revenue stream through TekStream for doing and expanding your SOC services, which is exactly what LSU is doing in our model, that we've gone to that level 3 essentially. And I think there'll be more details on some of that as we go forward. But I wanted to just give you guys a quick overview of what we created. We have a ton of content and not a lot of time, so I'm trying to be somewhat brief to make sure we get through some of the others. And so, Bruce, I think I'll let you go on with the next.
Okay, thanks, Craig.
Yep.
I'll start it off. Want to talk a little bit about the platform itself and some of the high-level architecture. I did want to kind of start off with another poll question. If you've got a SIM currently, what flavor? So, what is your most dominant SIM? Sometimes people have multiple. You may have Google and Microsoft Sentinel, for instance, but if you could pick one, what would it be in terms of?
And just to give some, because I didn't necessarily specifically call it out, our model and what we're doing in the state is all Splunk. So every school, all 34 entities, we're using Splunk for our SIM, and that has worked very, very well for us.
Definitely a lot of synergy in having a common platform, isn't there, Craig?
Yep. But there are other options, and we have been looking at using other options with this solution. So that's kind of why we're interested in what you guys have.
Yeah, and in many environments that we're seeing also that it used to be that the SIM could collect every data source and solve the swivel chair security problem by having one dashboard that give you visibility into any threat at whatever tier or appliance. And now we're seeing that being fractured somewhat with maybe a Microsoft Sentinel plus a Splunk environment, so that there's telemetry coming from multiple domains. And part of what we're trying to solve, leveraging AI, is really to regain that purview, if you will, of the whole enterprise architecture, the whole security threat surface. So, and I'll talk a little bit about that.
We'll give it about 15 more seconds as some people are just joining us to take that polling screen. And again,
Cool.
if you don't see your primary platform there, be sure to share it in chat.
Cool. A mix.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So just in general strokes, obviously, as Craig mentioned, this is a 24/7 domestic only MDR service. We can run it lights out or in collaboration with your team. That latter point is kind of setting us apart in terms of the transparency and level of collaboration. We've built a lot on the platforms that we support. We go very, very deep. So we're, leveraging Splunk in many cases, in Craig's case, to do kind of the real-time telemetry, but we're also then shortening the time to implementation through automation. We're shortening the overall cost of ownership. We're publishing on a bi-weekly basis. We're publishing new threat detections. And we're doing that in a way that is holistic. So we've got a lot that we focus on our platform that is across the ecosystem. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but you can see there's a kind of a call out to something called overkill. Euphemistically, it's an internal buzzword. It's more than just watching. It's basically threat intel and remediation across the platform, across all of the institutions where we have access. So we have the ability to take a threat and kind of go broad with it. We have
one thing I wanted to mention,
yeah,
that and piggyback off of what you said.
Yeah.
When we talk about this ability for revenue generation, and school chooses to go that route, there's one big thing right across the top of this slide that drives that, especially from a TekStream perspective, and that's being able to say they are domestic operations.
Yeah.
And so many companies might go overseas to try to cut costs on staffing and all of that. What they are offering is to subcontract with a school like they're doing with LSU, like they could do with you, and they will pay you. They will own all the legal language. They will own the contract with private industry or any of their other customers, and they're just paying you for your students' time to work in SOC operations. And so that's where, and it's an agreement between the school and TekStream, but allows them to say 24/7 domestic operations, which is the key, but still help lower costs because we're utilizing students. But these are not typical. I would say these are not typical students. When Michael starts talking about the training process, these are very, very skilled employees.
Yeah, and obviously we have a vested interest in making sure that they do have the appropriate skills to do incident response. We'll talk about some of the techniques for how we mature them in that context too. So this is obviously not just dental advice. We're fixing cavities over here. So meaning if we see IP addresses that are malicious, we want to block them potentially at the firewall as a part of our automation framework. And obviously our solutions are driven by collaboration with the students. We look at some of the broader processes that we support in the context of a neighborhood watch metaphor. And what that essentially means is that for any of the schools, or for that matter, whole of state, although, when we look at turning for profit in the areas that we've done that, it is frequently focused on not just covering other schools, but on covering other agencies within the state that the school resides. So some schools will go after, K through 12 or local municipalities and so forth, and start rolling out that service. Maybe you've got alumni at the state level. But the point of this neighborhood watch concept is that if one school sees a malicious threat, they report that back to the SOAR, and we have the ability then to basically look across the entire ecosystem, see whether any of indications are popping up that shows that a particular entity is vulnerable to that threat, and then not only remediate that threat through playbooks and automation, but then push out new detections that keep anyone from being vulnerable to that threat in a 24-hour period, which is a very different concept. It also means that our analysts and student analysts are working very, very closely with our engineering department. And so that is one example of how we take kind of the ecosystem approach. And really the focus here is on compounded leverage. If we see a threat in the context of any given school that looks like it's a day zero, looks like it transcends the boundaries of that institute, then we're on it from a process perspective, looking across everything that we have visibility to. So the more the schools that we have, the better threat information that we have.
And I think just one thing that you're showing on that slide
Yep.
Is we did start with the state of Louisiana, like I mentioned in my slide.
Yep.
That model works so well that we decided not that long ago
Yep.
to say, why don't we just open this up to any school
Everybody.
in the country?
That's right.
And in that short period of time, we've got NJIT who has joined. So they've got students in New
Yep.
Jersey in their SOC trained the same way, doing the same thing we're doing here.
Yep.
And Alabama, the McCreary Institute at University or at Auburn University,
Yep.
and then also Rutgers.
We couldn't put all the schools on one slide. We
Not
actually
yet. They're
started
growing pretty quick, but Rutgers,
Yeah.
well, Kennesaw State we've got Georgetown in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's expanding rapidly, and so we're switching to new visualization to show the country.
We got to make a bigger neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. Neighborhood's growing. So the other thing that I wanted to point out is that we're essentially focused on providing a security platform with an AI backbone. Not just, so euphemistically, we have kind of these different tools that are, I know this is hard to read, that are, let's say, incident response AI versus adversarial or threat surface analysis and adversarial emulation. We have, for instance, Siren, which is our honeynet. We're emulating customer traffic for all the common higher ed applications like Banner and Workday and Moodle and Canva, those types of things. It's really a platform that allows us to emulate pretty much any application that we want to with AI. And that the point is that each of the security platform solutions that we provides information to the whole. So in addition to like compounded value, when we get more schools, we're expanding upon this AI-driven threat framework because we are getting basically a feedback loop from each of these nodes. The orange is kind of the proactive type of threat detection, and on the blue is more obviously the defensive measures. But the point is that all of this threat information, threat intelligence information, all of the telemetry, all the risk values, all of that is coming into a centralized platform that is learning over time. And the feedback loop from each one of these makes every cycle better at the job. So obviously the focus for us is largely on incident response in the context of using a SIM, SOAR, and an incident response AI. But that type of concept then is interrelated to every other feedback mechanism in the loop. So for instance, if we are in the honeypot, we see an APT that looks like they're going after Banner, we can throw that into our threat list. That threat list is published across the entire ecosystem, and we can proactively start to block things or feed that into the AI and the Apollo, the incident response platform. So that's kind of broadly speaking how our architecture is rolling out and how it's being expanded and growing very, very quickly. But then the students get visibility into a broad threat architecture or security architecture, not just a couple of tools.
And so essentially what we're saying, Bruce, is the more schools that join into this program and join the neighborhood, the more economies of scale we might be able to create, which can help drive down costs or increase value, right?
It's compounded value is
Exactly.
the sense. That's exactly right. Thank you, Craig. And then I'll hand it over to Mr. Faisley to talk a little bit about our Workforce Academy.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, so talking here kind of about the benefits of having a student SOC and what that does for the university, right? One of those things really allows the university to become even more of a cornerstone for the state, elevating the reputation, giving the students opportunities outside of the classroom, right? Making them even more career ready by the time they're graduating by giving them that real world hands-on experience that they're getting in the SOC. They're not working exclusively out of a lab environment or anything like that. They're analyzing live incidents that are coming in and they're triaging those. They're working alongside our analysts on the TekStream side. They're getting the mentorship, the hands-on experience with those tools. So they're that much more prepared by the time they're getting ready to graduate and, um, you know, landing jobs, increasing that reputation for the university of, hey, this university really churns out a lot of highly skilled graduates in cybersecurity that day one, they're hitting their position, not needing a ton of training and are able to produce. So a lot of benefits kind of on both sides here, not only for the students, which we've talked about a little bit already and will continue to talk about, but really for the university as well, allowing the university to reduce its costs from a cybersecurity operations perspective. Like Craig said, students that are able to do these roles, that's a much lower cost to the university than full-time employees. And then, like we've talked about before, this idea of the neighborhood model and that, participating in it and having a student SOC within it, we are that much stronger together than we are separate, right?
And where TekStream has been great in this program, and again, for those of you who might have individual student SOCs or know of schools, the students are getting the experience, but they're never alone. TekStream is always there, and they can always escalate to a TekStream employee and say, "I need help with this. Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong, or is this a valid threat that I'm looking at?" So they're not by themselves, and I think that's the key. Yes, we're saving money because we're paying students, but they're not out at it alone, which is I guess the best of both worlds that I keep bringing up with this solution.
Yeah, and just to expand on that slightly, Craig, there are multiple feedback mechanisms to the students, right? So they have events that are audited, events that they've actually worked. TekStream analysts go through, score those, and then report back to the students, hey, this looked really great. Hey, maybe we could get on a call to discuss this one, ways that you could improve going forward. The students also, if they're just unsure during an investigation, right? Maybe they're 75% sure on how to work something. We have a playbook built into SOAR that the students can run. They can type in, hey, here's what I did with my investigation so far. Here's what I think is going on and how I think it should be handled. That then comes to us on the TekStream side. We have an opportunity to review it. If the student's done everything that that they were supposed to do and they followed the run book correctly, we'll let them know, hey, spot on, go ahead and proceed. If there's something that, maybe looks like could use a change, we'll message them back and say, hey, can we get on a quick Teams call and kind of talk through this, right? And just like we're on this call today, we'll do a screen share with the student, kind of walk through what they could have done a little bit better. So they're continually improving. Continuing on that same vein of this workforce development focus, they're getting this experiential learning while they're working in the SOC, right? So they're getting the hands-on experience, actually getting to touch the technology, different tools, whether that's Splunk or some other SIM, whether it's a sandbox, whether it's some EDR tool that the customer's exposing the analysts to be able to use. And they're using those tools to, in real time, be able to work incident response in a SOC environment. We've also built a leveling mechanism for the students, which I think is really great. Once they come into the SOC, they've done a few weeks of training, which I'll talk about here in a few slides. They start working some basic investigations. As time goes on, they will receive more training and they will be able to be eligible to move up. We have basically three levels of our uh, program for the analysts right now. And then we have badges that are issued to the students through Credly as they move through that. So the students will have an opportunity to test and move up, and they'll continue to receive training as the program progresses. And as it stands today, right now, what we're doing is we're leveraging the LMS platforms that you as universities already have. Many of you already have Udemy, you have Pluralsight, you have LinkedIn Learning, Skillset Online, etc. We're taking the LMS platforms that you already have today, and we're letting you know, hey, here's the trainings within those LMS platforms that are relevant to the students to take. At this time, the students go through that training, start working in the SOC. We'll issue them more training as time goes on to allow them to level up. AI, if you've been to any conference or been on any webinar, this has been a huge topic over the last few years. And I think it's evident to everybody that uh, AI allows us to do a lot more, right? But one thing that is being seen, especially on the security analyst side, is it's actually kind of widening the talent gap. Um, this this really makes it, and Bruce uses this analogy all the time. It's like having students try to merge onto a highway on a bicycle, right? We need to make sure that the students are receiving an appropriate amount of training. So as they're trying to enter the workforce, they're not really entering the workforce as what is traditionally like an entry level. They have the skill set of an SA level 2 by the time they're entering the workforce. So the some of the tasks that were traditionally done by an SA1 are not being, kind of overtaken by generative AI, right? The other thing that's really important here is training the students so they have the understanding to realize if they are working in an organization that leverages AI to understand the good from the bad, right? Sometimes, and really oftentimes, AI is not necessarily perfect in the output that it gives. So the students have to have an appropriate level of understanding. So if the AI does happen to hallucinate, the students aren't just, oh, okay, yeah, this looks great, and they move on without their day, or move on about their day. They understand, hey, this doesn't look right. We need to do additional investigation. Um, this is an example of a student scorecard. Of course, we're using Bruce's name here. Um, on the
Remedial
scorecard.
student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is one thing that is provided to the students, and as they're getting close to graduation and they're starting to talk to different companies about jobs, they can use this as tangible evidence for what they've done while they're in the program, right? So instead of them telling the prospective employer, hey, I worked in a SOC for 2.5 years. The conversation is then, hey, I worked 368 events in the last 6 months. I found 18 true positives. Here's a list. It's kind of an eye chart, but on the left-hand side, you see several rows of text. Those would be all of the use cases that the student was able to investigate during their time, right? So it's a very accurate picture of here's what the student actually did, and here's also a breakdown of the complexity and the event audit scores that the students received. In this particular screenshot that we show, towards the bottom, you see the number 17 and the number 4.9 next to it. 17 was the number of events that were audited, and 4.9 was the audit score. That's out of 5 being the highest. So again, there's always that feedback mechanism to the students, whether it's events that are being audited and that information being given to them via a scorecard that then they have the opportunity to share with prospective employers, or there's that live feedback as well. If the student they are in the middle of an investigation and they kind of raise their hand and say, hey, I need help with something, they're always getting that feedback. So a question that I kind of want to pose to Bruce and Craig here is the concept of adoption versus DIY, right? Technically, any organization has the opportunity to uh, kind of do a student-powered SOC in a DIY method, right? Hey, I don't need anybody to help me, but Craig, since you've been through this and you have two SOCs on LSU's campus, kind of talk to me about why DIY maybe wouldn't work and why adoption is better.
Well, I wouldn't say DIY doesn't work, but what I see as we've developed this is what I call lots of differentiators that this program gives you that you don't get with DIY. One of the things is when Bruce showed the neighborhood watch slide, right, and that the more we are together in the neighborhood, we're making everybody else stronger by us looking out for each other and sharing that threat intel. You don't get that if you're doing it all by yourself on an island. So I think that's huge. But also the not having to recreate the wheel. There's massive amounts of training materials and processes we have that are really working for our students. And if we get to the slides that show, the outcomes and the placement of our students when they graduate, that is a key thing that you get automatically. You don't have to recreate it yourself. And I guess the last one I'll bring up is this ability to turn it into a revenue generator. And you can turn it into a revenue generator without having to worry about all the legalese and what type of insurance do I need if I'm going to offer this service to somebody to pay me directly. This model, they're not paying you directly. They're paying TekStream. TekStream is owning all the legalese, and TekStream just has an agreement with you that says, I'll pay you X dollars per hour for your students to do this work on our behalf. So it's a much, much cleaner way and lower risk way to get into a revenue generation model.
Okay, thanks for that. So final poll. Um, could you make your student SOC, if you already have one, or thinking to have one, a revenue center, right? So, if yes, yeah, this would be really well received. We have a couple maybe options there, or, there's obviously a no for regulatory reasons. Um, Again, kind of looking for some feedback here on what everyone thinks about this, because again, as we're kind of talking about at the onset, this is kind of a little bit of a newer concept, right?
And I think the way, just so you guys know where we're heading, it doesn't mean you have to have a SOC and answer the question. What you do is, if you were to have an interest in this type of a program, would you want to take it all the way to where you're generating revenue, or would you be happy with just a student SOC that's part of this program, but you don't want to turn it into a revenue generator, because there could be reasons for that, and that's what we're trying to figure out. Would there be issues on your end if you want to try to do that?
We'll give it about 10 more seconds, let everyone kind of collect their thoughts as they're thinking through that question.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, this is really great.
So I guess we've got a few more minutes. We can touch on the training process.
Yeah, I know we don't have a ton of time, so I'll kind of move through this quickly. We do have some demographics to share with everyone. I think kind of a misnomer, or misunderstanding that some people have when they first hear about this program is thinking that 100% of the students would come from, a cybersecurity degree. And as you can see here, we do have quite a few different majors that are represented. Um, You see psychology, computer engineering, electrical engineering. We've had industrial engineering in the past. Um, Certainly, there are quite a few computer science, but it's not the type of program that requires uh, only computer science majors to participate. Honestly, the biggest part of this is critical thinking, and I'll talk about that here in another slide. The ability for the students to be able to critically think is paramount. And that's really what we're looking for out of students that want to participate in this program. From a training and onboarding perspective, 6-week time frame. It starts with the critical thinking assessment. That is kind of one of our initial gates that the students have to pass. Um, think of them kind of like logic-based questions. They'll then go through some interviews, go through some basic security training and Splunk training. It could be different if you have another sim. And then we do some other assessments relating to security and the tools that they would be using, interspersed with what we call shadowing and reverse shadowing. Shadowing would basically be the students on a Teams call following along with our analysts as our analysts walk through the different UIs of the tools that they would be using, as well as the incident response process and working different use cases. And then in reverse shadowing, TekStream analysts are getting on calls with students, but in this case, the students are driving, right? The students are actually doing the investigation, and the TekStream analysts are making sure that everything, looks good and that the processes were followed correctly. Once that 6-week period is done, the students are officially working in the SOC. Like I said earlier, there's still a maturity leveling set that's in place, levels 1 through 3. So there is some ongoing training that continues to go on. And then the ultimate goal here is placement of the students into careers.
And one thing I want to highlight is that critical thinking assessment, because that is really the main gatekeeping that we do. You don't have to have a cybersecurity background or an IT background to be eligible for this program. You have to pass that critical thinking test. So that allows students from all disciplines. So if you're at a liberal arts college right now, it does not mean your students couldn't be part of this if they can critically think. And we have seen we can train them on the rest. And so I just wanted to point that out, that it could be open to a broader set of students than you would think.
100%. Yeah. Few productivity metrics that I'll kind of show here. The one in the top left is kind of showing that first quarter when we had a SOC at LSU. As you can see, the student wedge depicted in orange was very small because the SOC was just starting out. But quarter after quarter after quarter, you see Q2 of 2025, and we actually have much newer data on this showing that the students are actually working 50% of the events that are coming in. So half is being worked by the students, and then half is being worked by TekStream. And then here we're showing NGIT, which is one of the much newer SOCs. And you'll see in just a month time, the amount of events that the NGIT students were able to work increased tremendously. And part of that reason is just the refinement of the training that has occurred over time, right? So when we first started the program, we were working with the students, and honestly, I think the students really surpassed all of our expectations, right? Very, very bright, could actually take on a lot more than what we were giving them. And as we realized it, we started to refine the training program, and the students are able to be onboarded much more quickly and start to work more complex, not only more complex, but a higher volume of events in a short period of time. This slide here is just talking about the cybersecurity career counseling program that we have, or C3, where students that are wanting to participate in it will work with our recruiters as they're getting close to graduate. Students usually reach out when they're about a year out from graduation, And then our recruiters work with them on resume building, building their LinkedIn pages, soft skills interviews. Students actually end up interviewing with some of our technical staff, so they can get experience of what a technical interview looks like. And then the recruiters will help the students be placed into careers as they're graduating.
And this is one of those other differentiators that I would say you don't get if you do it yourself, is that students get that excellent career counseling through TekStream if they choose as part of this program.
Yeah. And this slide here is just showing a few of the different places that our students who have graduated from the program have ended up.
And 100% of our students who have graduated here at LSU, we can speak to, have found jobs either instantly. Half of them have gone to TekStream, which is not a surprise, but they've gone many other places. So this is what it was all about, right? Workforce development and helping them find really good employment when they leave. And this program is doing that, which is a point of pride for the school and something that can be, put in promotional materials. And any school that adopts this would have that same capability.
It's really evolved into a reputational asset for the school, hasn't it, Craig?
Yes, absolutely.
I think that brings us to a few minutes left if there are any questions.
I've been watching the chat and I don't see any recent questions. So we'll definitely open it up. If you guys have anything you'd like to know or something you'd like us to dive a little bit deeper in with the few minutes we have left, we're happy to do that.
Okay, I think Nikki has posted the link for both the slides and the recording in chat for those of you that are interested in following up with that. Nikki, I'll hand it to you.
Okay, and so Cece has also shared a link to that workforce development, the career center that you all were talking about.
Yep.
We did have several questions about getting copies of this presentation. So again, those will be loaded on the archive site, hopefully later today, but definitely within 24 hours of the recording. So it doesn't look like we have any further questions. So want to make sure everyone gets those notes. CC has also dropped a note in there. Don't forget to join TekStream at EDUCAUSE Cyber next month. So that will be exciting.
Yeah, we're excited about that too.
On behalf of EDUCAUSE, I would like to thank you, Michael, Bruce, and Craig, for a wonderful webinar and for your presentation of the information. To our audience, thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope that you enjoyed the webinar. Before you sign off, please take a moment and give us your feedback by clicking on that evaluation link I've shared in the chat, and let us know how you felt about today. Your comments are very important to us. Thank you all again for your attendance and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.